It's good to see you this morning. My name is Zach, and I'm one of the pastors on staff here. It's so good to be with you this morning. Listen, I love serving this community. I love working here. It really is one of the joys and honors of my life. I love this place. I love this is a place that like my family loves to come. Like my wife, my kids especially, they love coming to church here. They love experiencing God in this place. And it really is, I'm biased, right? But I really think it is one of the best places to go to church in central Ohio around. Yeah, come on, we can give it up for that. And so listen, if it's your first time, I just want to invite you, okay? Right after this experience is over, stop by the landing. We got some people who would love to connect with you. They just want to get to know you, just have a conversation. Make sure you do that right after this experience is over. If I've not had the pleasure of connecting with you, I would love to meet you. I'll be in the foyer right afterwards. Just stop by, say hi. I'd love to get to know you, get to know your story. And hey, listen, if it's your first time and you don't like today, okay, I won't be offended, okay? Just know that I'm not the lead pastor, okay? Our lead pastor, Pastor Tim Moore, okay, he's gonna be back next week. By the way, can we give it up for him, man? I'm biased, but I think he's one of the greatest teachers, leaders, communicators around, and it's an honor to serve. And so I just want to say thank you to Pastor Tim for giving me the honor of having the platform this morning. Listen, if you're new, we've been in the middle of a series of conversations that we're calling Truly Happy. And it's really this journey through the main message that Jesus preached throughout his time in ministry, and that is the Sermon on the Mount. Now, this message, okay, it's one of Jesus' probably his main message that he would preach, and he'd go around and preach it. And the bulk of that message is found in the book of Matthew 5 through 7. And so we're kind of working our way through that. Those are the parts of it that are found in some of the other gospels, and that's okay. But for our purposes, we're going to be in the book of Matthew today. And as we're going on, okay, the themes of this message really speak to the kind of life that Jesus calls us to, okay? As Christ followers, if you're going to follow Jesus, this is kind of what he calls us to. And it's really a picture of what a good life looks like, or dare I say, a happy life. And here's what I know to be true, that all of us, okay, we're often kind of chasing happiness. We want to discover happiness. And so this kind of message, okay, a message about kind of who we're becoming and the kind of person that God calls us to become, okay, as a discipleship pastor, this is like theological crack candy to me. Like I love this kind of message. Like, man, Pastor Tim, he can speak on end times. He can speak on it's complicated stuff like that, and he's great for that. But give me a message about who we're becoming, and I love that kind of message. But here's the thing. Even for me, I can hear messages like we've heard, and we've heard from some great communicators already, Pastor Russ, Jessica, Pastor Tim. We're gonna hear from some other ones before this series is over. And I'm inspired and I'm encouraged, but then I go and, my life gets busy, and it's Wednesday, and I'm kind of forgetting a little bit about the message, and then Saturday comes, and by the time Saturday comes, man, I'm just trying to survive like to Sunday and then kind of restart, and then I'm just kind of ready to kind of try again, okay? And so even for me, it feels like the process of discovering what a good life looks like, of discovering happiness, like it feels so elusive. And so I try to do different things to kind of discover happiness. So, I'll say I'll lose weight, okay? Like I'm gonna try to get in shape. I'm gonna try to feel good physically, and so I'll pursue doing that. And that works. You certainly feel better about yourself. You feel like you got energy in those things. But if you've ever kind of gone through that process, yeah, and you can discover that, okay, maybe I feel good, but am I happy? Like it feels like there's more out there. Or maybe you try something like, okay, hey, I'm not happy, so I'm gonna start like manifesting my happiness. I'm gonna start like pop culture psychology, like a list of 10 affirmations, and if I just speak my happiness into existence, then like I'll be happy. And while I do think there is power in positive thinking, and there's power in speaking life over yourself, you'll find that kind of wears off too, right? Like eventually you're left wanting more. And so at the end of the day, I'm left kind of searching, okay, what can I do to make me happy? And if there's one thing that brings me happiness in this world that I think we all can relate to, it's this. It's retail therapy, right? Who loves a little retail therapy? Make some noise, okay? We love some retail therapy, right? Now listen, I'm not sure how to build. It's not real, by the way, okay? It's not real, I promise. Listen, I'm not sure how to build happiness, but I do try and buy it, right? Can anyone else relate? Like, I'm not sure how to build happiness, okay, but I do try and buy it. In fact, my grandfather used to tell me growing up, Zach, money, it just burns a hole in your pocket. Has anyone ever said that about you? Like it burns a hole in your pocket? My friends in high school, they would make fun of my spending habits. And you'd think like after high school, like going to college, like it would get better. It didn't. I go up to college. In fact, here's a funny story. So I go up to college to get married, okay? And my wife and I, we take out this credit card, okay? And it's gonna pay for our honeymoon. And we had some other expenses and things we were trying to do at the time. And it's the only way we could afford it. And we were like, well, we wanna go on a honeymoon. So we get this credit card. And you know how it works. You have more limit than probably what you should be approved for. And so we pay for the honeymoon. We come back and we just kind of start buying stuff, right? Like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We were actually living in a parsonage at the time. And so it was the biggest home we had lived in ever. And it was about this time that I started getting this like really specific nostalgia for something from my childhood. Has anyone else experienced that? Right? Like just like something that you had growing up that you're just like, man, I wish I kind of had that again. And it was about that time that I actually got this really specific nostalgia for these trading cards that I actually had when I was in middle school. Now, they weren't just any kind of trading cards, okay? Like you'd think, oh, baseball trading cards or football trading cards. No, these were Lord of the Rings trading cards. I mean, this was like a trading card game that I played as a middle schooler. And I wanted to see those cards again. I wanted to have them in my hands again. And so I take this credit card, okay, and I go to eBay, okay? I don't even know if eBay is a thing anymore, but I went to eBay and I would, listen, I am kind of embarrassed to admit how many cards I bought. I'm just gonna tell you it was in the hundreds, okay? I bought hundreds of cards, spent hundreds of dollars, okay, on this credit card, okay, buying these cards. And I got them, and I was so excited, and I looked at them, and I kind of held them for a little bit, and then I kind of put them away, and that was it. Now, you might think Lord of the Rings trading cards are dumb, okay? But here's my question. What's your trading card story this morning? Because we all have one, don't we? Like, we all have something from our past where we've maybe bought something just because we're chasing a feeling. In fact, I think if I were to ask everyone who walked in the room this morning, hey, I bet you in 10 seconds or less that you could name 2 or 3 things that if you had right now, you think would bring you a measure of happiness. And most of us would probably be able to answer that question, right? Like, it's not hard to grasp 2 or 3 things just off the tip of our tongue that we think are gonna bring us happiness. And see, I think Jesus understood this kind of tension that we'd find ourselves in. And so if you have your Bibles, I want you to open up to Matthew chapter 6. We're gonna be starting on verse 19. You can follow along on the screen or you can follow in your app. There's notes in the app you can follow along with as well. But I'm gonna pick up verse 19 with Jesus' words, and he says this. He says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body, and if your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Now, some of us, in fact, probably most of us have heard these verses before. Maybe you've heard them preached here. Maybe you've heard them growing up, okay? These are not unfamiliar verses to us, okay? But what is Jesus doing here? See, I think Jesus is giving us a roadmap to understanding what's inside of us. Jesus is giving us a roadmap to understanding what's inside of us. If you were here last week, you know, Jessica spent a ton of time talking about our motives and why they matter and why God the Father doesn't necessarily care about our actions, but he really cares about our motives and what's going on inside of us. And so even as we've heard these verses before, I just can I just say that it's easy to kind of dismiss things that we've heard all the time and just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna check out now on the message and wake me up when it's over. But today, I wanna invite you into just a moment of like self-reflection and honesty. Because I think it's in that self-reflection and honesty that scripture really begins to come alive and it begins to speak to us today. So in that vein, as I was thinking about these verses this week, I was thinking about verse 19, where it says, do not store up treasures on earth. And I was thinking about, okay, well, how do I do that? Like, what does that look like for me? Now, I know it seems fairly obvious, but I do think that it's worth noting and saying that I think most of us, without even realizing it, okay, start to store up and accumulate things in this earth. And I don't know what it looks like for you, okay? Maybe it's hobbies that you're kind of investing in, and you start, like me, you're buying trading cards, or you're buying things that fund your hobby, or doing whatever. Or maybe you're pursuing getting a bigger car, or a new house, or doing things like that. But I think for most of us, okay, when we think about storing up treasures on earth, we kind of picture like these really ultra materialistic, ultra self-centered people. Maybe that we see them on social media talking about themselves all the time. And we think, well, that's not really me. Like I'm not that way. Like I'm not materialistic on the surface. I mean, sure, like I like to buy stuff, but like I'm not greedy. Like I'm generous. Like I give to the church, and I provide for my family. Sure, I like to travel, right? I travel, but I don't go over the top of my travel. Like I'm not traveling every other week. I'm not doing things like that. Now, caveat, when it comes to Disney, I will go over the top, okay? Like that's just, my wife knows, like that's just our thing, that's what we do. Okay, but we don't really think about ourselves as materialistic. But here's what's true about me. And if it's true for me, it might be true for you, okay? The feeling I do feel is that what I have is not enough. Do you feel that way? That just like you like your life and you like what you have and yes, like God has provided and all those things, but like it feels like what you have like isn't enough, and like if I just have a little bit more. Like if I could just have one more thing, then maybe I would find happiness. And so we spend time chasing trading cards. We spend time chasing whatever it is, trying to find that happiness. And what are we doing, okay? What are we doing in this process? So we're using money, okay? Not necessarily to become more materialistic, but we're trying to use money to buy happiness. Okay, it's the feeling that we're chasing. Essentially, we're buying a dopamine hit. And if you were here last week again, Jess talked about the effects of dopamine in our brain, and that it's the happiness chemical, and when it's released, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel pleasure. You want more of it, and so what do? You chase the things that bring dopamine. And so when you swipe the card and you get the new thing and you bring it home, like that releases dopamine, and you feel really good. And like any drug, like you need more of it. Like you need bigger, better, best. You need more things to feel the same way. So maybe what Jesus is saying is that the secret to happiness lies in being content. And that's true on the surface, right? But like you weren't even really thinking about contentment. And besides being a bit of a Jesus juke, like, oh yeah, like I should just be content with what I have. Like, what is Jesus actually getting at here in these verses? See, I think what Jesus is really getting at is that maybe the secret to happiness, according to Jesus, isn't just about learning to be content, but it's also learning to steward well what we have been given. It's learning to steward well what we have been given. See, it's not about what you're kind of investing in on an eternal sense, okay? But it's choosing to invest what you have in something different. And I think that's why Jesus goes on in verse 20, and he says, but store up for yourself treasures where? In in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. Now, as I reflect on this, okay, so what does it look like for me to then store up treasures in heaven? You know, I recognize that I probably do store up treasures on earth in some way. I don't feel materialistic, but I am. But like, what does it look like to store up treasures in heaven? I was thinking about a couple just practical examples for what this looks like. And number one, a way to store up treasures in heaven. How about we start investing in people and not possessions? Invest in people and not possessions. Now, I've got 4 kids, busy life, okay? My wife works a job and a half. By the way, my wife is incredible. I don't know where she is, if she's here. Oh, there she is. Love you. You're awesome. She's the rock for our family, does so much. We have a really busy life, okay? And so when I come home, we get the kids in bed, okay? I plop down on the couch, and I turn into what I've affectionately called a comfort goblin. Like, I just turned into like this, like, mush on the couch, and I'm just like, I start zombieing out, and I'm like scrolling on social media, or I'm zoning out on Netflix, or I'm doing whatever. And before I know it, like hours pass, and I'm just sitting there, and it's what, here's what we call it, right? Self-care. That's what we call it. Like, it's like, I just gotta take care of me and doing all that time. And before you know it, you're spending all your time focused on what? Yourself. What if storing up treasures in heaven looks like taking 10 minutes and texting 3 people and saying, hey, I see you, you're on my mind, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you. How can I help you? Is there anything that you need in my life? Think about the effect you could have in people's life if you chose to do that for just 10 minutes instead of spending hours on your phone doing whatever. Here's another way. Store up treasures in heaven. You can serve when it costs you. Serve when it costs you. Now, you all know what I mean whenever I say this, right? Like, we've been part of a friend group, or maybe you're part of a circle here at church, and you get the text in the group, and it says, hey, moving this weekend, what you doing? You wanna come help? People are chuckling because you know what that text is like. I'm laughing too because I've asked for that help 7 times in my life, just over the last 7 years. It's been insane. Okay? Now, there's not a lot of earthly reward when it comes to helping a friend move, okay? But think about what that does, okay? The serving, how that refreshes you. Or here's another one, all right? Serving where it costs, okay? I'm gonna be honest. Again, 4 kids, busy life. Okay, we're not even in our travel sports era yet. And my life is busy. My schedule is maxed out, okay? Now here's the thing. I get paid to show up here on Sundays, okay? And there's Sundays where I still don't wanna be here. See, y'all don't get paid and you still show up here on Sundays, okay? And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. You understand what it means to serve when it costs you, okay? Because you show up, you volunteer, you come and you're part of this, especially if you are serving in this house. And listen, that's an example of even when you don't want to, even when you're not feeling it, you're gonna say, yes, I'm gonna show up because my community needs me, my people need me. That's serving when it costs you. I think a third way that we can begin to store up treasures in heaven, and maybe the most obvious way, okay, is to choose generosity over accumulation. Choose generosity over accumulation. Now, if you go back to those verses, 19 and 20, okay, I kind of skipped over a few parts of the verse. It says what? It says, do not store up treasures on earth where moth and vermin destroy and thieves break in and steal, but store up, there's this idea of accumulation, okay, treasures in heaven where moth and vermin do not. Now, when I think about moths and vermin, okay, who else thinks vermin is a weird word? Like, maybe you just think, picture mice like running around a warehouse and like what's Jesus talking about here? Maybe for the translation, moth and rust in it, the whole idea of corrupting. So clearly this is an analogy, and Jesus is saying something here when it comes to the idea of accumulation. And I think what we all understand is that everything we accumulate on earth, okay, all of our money, all of our possessions, our comfort, all that stuff, it eventually what? It fades away, it decays, okay? We can't take it with us, or it ends up somewhere else. And that place is often the basement. Now, remember those trading cards I was talking about earlier? Where do you think I found these cards this week as I was preparing? That's right, I found them in the basement. Listen, I promise you, I'm holding on to these. They're gonna have value one day. Like one day, they're gonna be worth something. Isn't that what we tell ourselves, right? Like I got this like deluxe starter set here. Let me think here. Hey, what do you think? You think this holographic orc ambusher card? Like, you think that's gonna be worth something one day? Like, I don't know. What about this? Oh gosh. Oh yeah, the Uric High Scout. Maybe he'll be worth something one day. Not really. Okay. They're probably not even worth the cardboard and the paper that they're printed on. Certainly not worth what I spent on the credit card, okay? And all the interest that I paid over the years trying to pay them off, all right? This is what accumulation looks like. We buy stuff we don't need, okay? Because we want it, we think it's gonna make us feel happy in a moment, and where does it end up? In the basement, rotting away and decaying. And you can't take it with you. And when I think about generosity, choosing generosity, listen, when we sacrifice, okay, when we sacrifice as we give, okay, understand that we're not just investing in something that's gonna fade away eventually, we're investing in something that has eternal value. And this principle is so powerful that it's actually one of our 7 core values here at X Church. We say that generosity is our privilege. In fact, if you don't know our value, I'm just gonna read it for you because I think it's so powerful. We say generosity is our privilege. We have freely received, so we freely give. Our response to God's irrational grace is a life of irrational generosity. We choose to be generous with our time and our energy and our finances. It is our privilege. And so I think that if we believe what Jesus is saying about storing up treasures in heaven, okay, and if we believe in choosing generosity over accumulation, then follow my train of thought here, then perhaps it makes sense that the most impactful, grounded ways, and this is where the value really becomes personal, that you can actually put that into practice in your life is to give through your local church. Is to give through your local church. Now, why? See, I believe the local church isn't just an organization. It's God's plan A for reaching the world. It's where lives are changed. It's where families are restored. It's where disciples are made. It's where hope is found. It's where truth is declared. It's where grace is discovered. It's where healing is received. It's where salvation is found. It's where I found my calling. It's where I found my purpose. Listen, if your life has been changed by the church or by people in the church, can we just make some noise this morning? Come on. Listen, when you give to the church, understand, you're not just funding a budget, you're fueling mission. Chloe, who got baptized today, okay, her life was changed by Jesus. Now, she experienced Jesus through the expression of this church. Okay, she was able to do that because of people who give faithfully to this place. And no, I understand, okay? The minute I start talking about giving to the church and doing all that, okay, it gets weird. People start to feel awkward, like, oh, don't go there, Pastor. Like I was with you up until this point, but don't do that. And I understand that there's a lot of different ways that we all think about money and giving to the church and doing all this stuff, and I get it because money's personal, okay? But here's just some of the things I've heard over the years in doing ministry. Hey, I'm an Old Testament believer when it comes to tithe and giving. Like Jesus he doesn't really address much about it or say much about it in the New Testament. Just kind of give when you can. Or I'll start giving whenever I have extra. Or I'll start giving whenever I I got some responsibilities first. And once I take care of those, then I'll start giving. I've heard it all. And listen, that's not to say that there's not real obstacles or real things that make it feel like it's impossible to give. I understand that. Like, I have kids. I got bills. I got things I have to pay. I got responsibilities. I've got debt I'm trying to pay off. All these things. Okay, but understand this when it comes to giving. That giving isn't about having extra. It's about making a decision. You got to make a decision in your mind that says, listen, I don't know where this is going to come from. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't always line up, but I'm just going to trust that, God, you're going to take what I have left and you're going to multiply that. And I have seen time and time again in my life, God be faithful and respond and multiply. I've seen where the budget doesn't add up and it doesn't make sense, but God has responded in my life, all right? This is the only place where God says, test me in this. And when you do, see that I won't throw open the storehouses of heaven. Giving isn't about having extra, it's about making a decision. Some of you today need to start to make a decision to give. Maybe you're already giving, and you're gonna just step into giving more. Maybe it's, hey, I'm gonna commit to 1%, 2%, 5%. The number doesn't even almost matter. That's between you and God, okay? But it's about making decisions. I believe some of you today are gonna give for the very first time. You've never given before. And you're gonna give for the very first time. Now listen, why does this matter? Because this says something about your heart. This says something about what you value, and I think this is why Jesus goes on to say in the next verse, he says, for where your treasure is, there your what? There your heart will be also. There your heart will be also. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in chasing happiness, chasing things that we want, okay? And it reveals something about us. See, again, Jesus, okay, he's not just giving us financial advice in these passages. He's giving us a roadmap to understand what's inside of us. Okay, some of you are chasing happiness, wondering if you're ever gonna find meaning in life, okay? But this isn't about balancing budget, but this is about what you believe. It's about what you value. It's about what you protect. It's about what matters to you, okay? This principle, and when you begin to choose generosity over accumulation, okay, our perspective begins to flip. And all of a sudden, things begin to make more sense. Now, as Jesus continues on in his teaching, in verses 22 and 23, he gives this analogy, and I read it earlier, but it's about the eye and how the eye lets in light, and when light comes into our bodies, we're healthy, but then when our eyes are closed, like darkness fills our body, and we kind of understand that, and we're unhealthy. The Greek for healthy and unhealthy kind of implies generosity and stinginess. And so really this is just an analogy for the same kind of truth that he was preaching in verses 19 through 21. And if we had more time, we could unpack kind of the Hebrew worldview about how the body and the mind and the soul and those things are all connected. See, we have a very Western kind of Platonic view of ourselves, that like those things are not connected, but in reality, those things are all connected. And so what Jesus is talking about your heart, okay? He's saying that that's connected to your emotions, what you feel, what you experience. There's power in that. But I want to focus on this last verse because I think there's something interesting that Jesus is doing here. And I want to read it for you. And I want to read to you what he says. He says in verse 24, he says, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, how many of you grew up in the KJV version of the Bible or have read the KJV version? It says, you cannot serve both God and what? Mammon. What the heck is mammon? Like, well, what is this weird word, okay? The word mammon just simply means money. In Hebrew, it means money. Mammon It's like wealth personified. It's like money or materialism personified. In fact, there's some scholarly research and debate about if mammon was like maybe a local deity during that time that like they worshiped or maybe held up. Also, in the Middle Ages, mammon was often thought about as like a demon overlord, like one of the 7 princes of hell. Like that's how much kind of the personification grew of money. Now, while I don't think Jesus is talking about like some demon or overlord here, or even like a local deity they worship, like what is Jesus doing here? Because this is a fascinating contrast that he's drawing between the love of God and the love of money. Because I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier, that when I think about money, okay, think about love of money, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I love God, but I don't really think about money that much. In fact, let me say it this way. Money may not be what we talk or think about the most, but it's often the subtle script that we follow in the pursuit of our happiness. And that's exactly what money wants to do. See, we sit here in America, kind of the height of materialism. And I wanna be reflective and I wanna ask, hey, what influence does money have in my life? And just, I want you to be aware that we're in a place where it's so easy to be materialistic that we don't even think about it. Like, we just experience it. We just live in it. And as I was reflecting this week, I'm like, gosh, like, how do I not let this thing, this like money or love of money begin to dominate or control my life? And what money does is it's this kind of secret, shadowy force. I'm gonna call it a force that sits in the background of your life, and it whispers. In the same way that often God doesn't speak through a storm, but he whispers. He whispered to the prophet Elijah. Okay, money operates in the background and it whispers and it influences you in your pursuit of happiness. And so as I was reflecting this week, I was like, gosh, like there's gotta be a test. Like there's gotta be like an internal like heart check. Because again, like Jesus, God the Father, like they care about motive. Like your motive matters, heart matters. So I was like, here's a test that I came up with that I think would be a great self-reflection tool for us as we start to think about if maybe perhaps we love money more than what we realize. And so follow me along as I do this, and I think you might discover some ways that you love money. Number one, do I feel anxious when I think about giving something away? Do I feel anxious when I think about giving something away? Speaks to anxiety, right? Obviously worry. Okay, Jesus is gonna go on, we're gonna hear about this later on in the sermon where he literally commands us to not worry about anything. He says, I care for the sparrows and for the birds of the air and for the beasts of the field. Like I'm gonna provide for you too. Do you feel anxious when I think about giving something away? Number two, am I more excited to receive than I am to give? Now listen, I love gifts, okay? I'm a gifts guy. I love whenever, if you want to get me a gift, I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm just kidding. Heart check. But listen, am I more excited to receive than I am to give? Listen, I love where Proverbs says that it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that he what? That he gave his only begotten son. This speaks to love, okay? This shows how much you love, okay? If you care about people around you, if you care about others in your life, then you're gonna be excited to give them things, to give away things versus receiving. When you're always taking from those around you and you're never giving anything, and it can take you to a real lonely place in the world. Number three, do I regularly compare what I have to others? Oof, this is a hard one for me. This is a hard one. It's easy for me to look at my friends, my coworkers, okay, people that I know. Gosh, I wish I had their car. Gosh, I wish I had their house. Gosh, I want their name brand stuff. Like it's so easy for me to wrap up my identity in what either I have or what I don't have. And I just want more, okay? And the minute that my identity starts to become something other than what God says I am, that I am a son of God, that I am loved by him, that I am a workman approved by him, the minute my identity starts to become something else other than that, okay, my worldview begins to become warped. Number 4, do I regularly do I feel more secure when there's more money in my account? Do I feel more secure when there's more money in my account? It speaks to trust, right? Like, God, I'm trusting you. That God, I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know what tomorrow is gonna bring, but God, I am trusting that, God, you are holding me in the palm of your hand. And the last one is, when I think about my future, is my first thought faith or finances? I love in Hebrews, it says that by faith, Abraham, by faith, Joseph, by faith, Moses, by faith, David, by faith, these heroes of the faith, okay, they walked, okay, with God, and it was credited to them as righteousness. Listen, I want my eyes to be full of faith. I want my soul to be full of faith. And I want to look forward to my future, not worried about my finances and where money's going to come from or how it's all going to work out in the end, but I want to walk forward in faith. And so these 5 questions are a great self-assessment tool to help you begin to assess if perhaps money has a bigger hold over your heart than what you realize. And understand that I get there's achievers in the room who just want to ace the test. And then we got perfectionists in the room who just get mortified whenever they feel like they're not measuring up and living up. Whatever it is, okay, wherever you are on that spectrum, okay? It's not designed to make you feel guilty, but it reveals something about your heart. And listen, we can say all day, God, you have my heart. But God says, where's your treasure? Because there I'm gonna understand where your heart is. And as I was thinking about this, and thinking about how all of this connects to happiness, I think the paradigm that we often, or the lens that we often view the world through, that we view our happiness through, is this. This is our paradigm, okay? More often than we care to admit, is that Jesus plus money equals happiness. Jesus plus money equals happiness. Jesus says in this verse, in verse 24, he says you cannot serve both God and money. In fact, if you love money at all, not only are you not serving me, but you are what? You are enslaved to money. You have no freedom. And I don't know about you, but you can't be happy if you're not free. So we live in a world that says that life is experienced kind of in a both and, right? Like we want to have our cake and eat it too. We want God. I want everything there is from you. I want all that you have for me, but also I want all of what this world promises. I want security. I want wealth. I want finances. And we think if we can just bring those two things together, then we'll be happy. And that's our paradigm. God says it's not both and. And while I do think there are things in our life and in our faith journey that we can hold in tension, we can say it's both and. I think when it comes to money, that it's not both and, it's either or. Either we love God or we serve money. Folks, I know that that's hard. Like this is not cookie cutter Christianity. But I want to get to a space where I understand that, or maybe not even I understand, but I believe in my heart that Jesus is enough for me. That Jesus is enough for me. I want my life to reflect that value. That Jesus is enough for me. And I know that there's questions going through your mind. Well, hey, I tithe 10% to the church, but we want to go on this dream vacation, my wife and I do, and we've saved cash for it. Does that mean I love money? I don't know, maybe. Or, hey, I'm saving for retirement. I got a nice savings account for retirement. but I'm doing it so my kids can have a better life than me. Like, does that mean I love money? I don't know. This is where money is so personal. And I know this might sound like a cop-out, but I promise it's not, okay? This is where you need to go and do work with God this week. You need to do some self-reflection and take this tension to God and say, God, search me, reveal my heart, show me where maybe I have elevated money over you, okay? Reveal those places that I have to do. And the minute that you start to begin to have some self-awareness of the power and the value that maybe you hold money, okay? Then the question becomes then, what decision are you gonna make to change your life? About 13 years ago, this truth kind of smacked me in the face. I was finishing up college and I was working at this Christian summer camp, and we were driving around states and we were putting on camp, and I'd actually just accepted my first job as a pastor, working at this little church in Utica, Ohio. And as I was driving around the Midwest, I was driving this old beat up Dodge Durango. The car fit me personality-wise, okay, but this thing was just, I mean, it was held together by duct tape and wires and a little bit of love and a little bit of prayer. And it was dying, man. And I drove this onto the lot, and it was like one of those situations where you drove it on the lot and you needed to drive off with a new car. You know what I'm talking about? And the salesman, I'm sure he saw dollar signs in his eyes whenever I walked onto the lot. And I have nothing against car salesmen. I think you all are incredible people. But this guy, like, he knew what he was getting, like, with me. And I walked on and I wanted a new Dodge, and there was this Dodge Journey. It was a used car, had like 70,000 miles on it. It had all the bells and whistles. It had everything that I wanted. I thought, like, gosh, I've never had a nice car. Like, this is, like, I want this. Like, I'm new job and I'm starting my life, and so I'm gonna get this car and it's gonna be awesome. It had the heated steering wheel and the leather seats and the GPS and all the things. And this is like 2013, so this is like before this stuff was really standard issue on a lot of cars. And so I got it. Y'all, I was making $300 a week, and somehow they got me approved for this car. I don't know how they did it. It was like black magic, voodoo. I don't know what it was, but like they somehow made it work. And I think this was July, and you know how it works. Like when you get a new car, you like skip a month the next month. Okay, you didn't have to pay the August payment, so September, the first payment comes due, and the bill comes. I'm like, I can't afford this. This is too much. See, I hadn't yet developed skill with money. It wasn't in the right place in my life. It occupied the wrong priority, and I would just spend it wherever I wanted, chasing whatever sort of happiness I wanted. Y'all, I was working as a pastor at a church, and if I'm just being fully transparent, I wasn't even giving to God through that church. And here I am driving a car that I can't afford, that I can't even pay for. Next month comes, and I'm like, well, I couldn't pay it the first month, definitely can't pay it the second month. Third month comes, okay, and then I hear a knock on the door. Dude shows up, and he looks at me and goes, hey, is that your Dodge Journey over there? I'm like, yeah. He goes, hey, you owe $1,000 on it, and if you don't come over with it in the next 2 days, I'm gonna come and take it. Can I just tell you, that was my moment. That's when I realized that I had my priorities out of whack, that I wasn't serving God, but I was a slave to money. Here I am working at church, a pastor. You think if there's anyone who would have it figured out, it would be me, but no, I wasn't even given to church, and I have a car that's about to get repossessed. Now, can I tell you what I did? I found a way. I started to make a decision. Probably called my mom, what any 23-year-old self-respecting person would do. Thanks, Mom. Bailed me out. Got it out of repossession. I went to the library that day, and I got Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. And I began to read it and apply the principles in my life. And can I just tell you, 13 years later, like, I'm not a financial wizard. I'm not a guru yet with money. My skill in money is still, I'm still growing that muscle, that skill in my life. But I made a decision at that point in my life that I was gonna begin to put God first. And it was a journey. Okay, my wife and I, we're still on that journey. We're still learning and figuring it out. But we have come to a point in our life, in our marriage, where we've said, listen, we're gonna put God first in our life no matter what. And can I just tell you that he has showed up time and time again in our finances. He has showed up time and time again for me. And I've learned that when it comes to my happiness, that I can have everything in the world, none of that matters, but Jesus is enough for me. So come on, would you stand, and I'm gonna pray and we're gonna get out of here. I don't know where this message finds you today. I know it can be challenging and it can be hard to maybe hear, to take a step when it comes to finances and money. And I get it, it's personal, I get it. But I started by just inviting us into a moment of self-reflection and honesty. And so in that vein, I wanna encourage us, let's make some space in our hearts right now for what God wants to speak to us. Because this is an area I've found that we wanna hold on to. And God wants to speak to us. And so would you join me in prayer this morning? Heavenly Father, God, I'm thankful for your word. I'm thankful for the mirror that it becomes, that it shows and highlights areas of my life that, God, I'm still in process. God, I'm thankful for your grace and mercy that, God, I don't have to be a finished product, but that I can still be in process. God, I pray that as we wrestle, as we struggle, as we think about the place that money holds in our life, God, I pray that you would begin to speak to us. God, allow us to hear your voice. God, I know money can be a strong influencer, and it can whisper, and it can have a hard grip. But God, I just pray that maybe today there'll be people who begin to throw off the shackles that comes with money. That we begin to embrace you, that we would understand that Jesus is enough. That Jesus is enough for us. Listen, we're gonna have a moment just of worship and reflection this morning. And I just wanna encourage you that no matter where you're at, when it comes to on your story with money, that you would just make space and you'd let God speak to your heart. God, reveal in me ways that I put money first.
Thanks so much for tuning into this message. I hope that it encouraged you and inspired your faith. If God is doing something in your life, would you take a moment and let us know? We want to connect with you and we want to be able to pray for you. All you have to do is shoot us an email to hello@thex.church, or you can always send us a DM on one of our social media platforms. And if you know somebody that would also be encouraged by this very message, why not take a moment and just share it with them right now? And as always, I want to say thank you to every single person who so generously financially supports this ministry so we can continue to get messages like these out to people all over the world. We believe God is building something special and you're a significant part of it. Until next time, have a great day.